It's official. Trump would be richer if he had just invested his inheritance into the S&P 500 or the US stock market, as otherwise known. That's what today's video is going to be about. All right, so I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this. I'm sure you've read this on Facebook and on Instagram, and people wanting to bag Trump. But first of all, we'll find out whether it's true. You can't listen to the fake news like he likes to call it. But we also need to find out why and understand why, because when you're at the levels, the billionaire levels of these people are at, right? It's not as easy to keep your wealth as you think. Well, what it takes you to get to those level of wealth isn't the same skill set that is needed to keep it there, and that's why a lot of them go up and down and up and down and up and down, because you got to risk it for the biscuit at those numbers. You know, those numbers don't just come from working and saving. It doesn't happen that way. But trying to balance between when do you put some more conservativeness behind it and when do you keep risking it can be the difference from being a billionaire and a multi-millionaire, you know. So we're going to have a look at that today and understand why. You know, why would he have been better off doing that? And what could he have done differently? And what can you take from this? I put up a post the other day that said, so many of you investors and traders, you know, it grinds my gears when day traders share Warren Buffett quotes. Don't share the quotes of men that would never do what you do, right? Like you can't follow the philosophy of someone who would never do what you do. It doesn't make sense. You can't take his theories and put them into you because it's completely different actions, right? We've got to stop focusing on the outcomes of people. You know, oh, Warren Buffett's a billionaire. Well, I want to be a billionaire, so I'll follow his quotes. But then you don't follow his process. You just want to copy his outcome without doing what he did to get there, right? Blows my mind how many people do that. Let's start focusing on the processes. Start focusing and idolizing what it takes to get to places and forget about what the actual outcome is. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to look at, you know, we need to look at where, I guess, roughly where Trump would be today if he invested in the in the S&P 500. So if we have a look at the latest article on the matter, we can see a chart based on the last few years. We actually see he was well ahead of the S&P 500 as of September 2018. He was, you know, a good $1 billion ahead of it, right? Doing quite well. And then famous COVID hit. And obviously Trump's heavily into the hotel businesses, which got hit very, very hard, and travel and tourism and accommodation. So we can see what happened there, right? And that's what I'm saying. When you're in big numbers like billions, right? Usually you're pretty leveraged. We know Trump's very leveraged, but which means your losses are magnified and your gains are magnified. And we can see here in the course of 6 months, 8 months, almost, you know, $1 billion is wiped out of his net worth. $1 billion. $1 billion. $1,000 million, right? Crazy. And there, in March 2021, then we can see that the S&P 500 overtook him, right? So it's only really at that point can we say that, you know, he would have been better off. But this is a very average chart, I believe, because it's taking into account the volume and it's not taking into account the compounded effect since the day he took over the inheritance from his father and invested it over and over again, which I do believe, based on the returns and the numbers, that he probably would be quite substantially ahead. But regardless, this is a good enough chart to show where we're sort of at. So as of this chart, which is September 2021, so end of last year, I think it said he finished. So he finished with about 2.5 billion, down from about 3.3 billion, whereas the S&P would have finished just shy of 3 billion. Fast forward that to today, a couple of months later, even substantially more, especially with Omicron coming around. So long story short, the charts show that yes, the answer is yes, he probably would, if he took the inheritance, which I believe was roughly 20 million from his father, and inherited that in the S&P 500, invested that in the S&P 500 and didn't try and make any business deals, he would have, he'd be far ahead where he was. Now, does that mean he's a bad investor? No, it doesn't. Right, this is what I'm sick of hearing. People say, no, he's a shit investor, because if he just invested in the ASX or just invested in the index, he would have been ahead. And that's what Warren Buffett tells you all the time. But how many of you do that? None of you. You're trying to go buy crypto and buy the next NFT. You go and try and day trade. So shut up, right? You're trying to do what he did on a much less successful scale. So stop trying to rip into this bloke about it, right? But let's have a look. Let's have a look at what his life's kind of looked like. So if we look at this chart, it shows from 1982 all the way through to 2017, and it shows the rises and falls of Trump's net worth. And we can see at the most he was about 4.5 billion, so he's probably sitting 2 billion short of his highest. Now, if we have a look, he opens Trump Tower early on, right? Becomes a billionaire in '89. It took him 7 years, right? And you think that's great, like that's amazing. It is, it's amazing. But this is what I'm saying about risk it for the biscuit. The amount of leverage, and we'll see in a second what happens here, but the amount of leverage, the amount of debt this bloke would have to get there is out of control. But that was the risk he was willing to take, right? He was increasing his risk to get there. So he gets to become a billionaire in 1988. And then at the peak of his wealth at this point, from 1990 to 1995, he faces an avalanche of debt. Trump drops off the Forbes list, and we don't really see him again until, so he forecloses businesses. His businesses went into bankruptcy, and he ended up not coming back onto the list until around 1996, which he was sitting at about $500 million, right? So that's what debt does to you. Debt can get you there quick, but it can fold you quick. It's what you guys got to understand. You understand that when you're risking it for the biscuit, you can get big places, but it can also wipe you out. Fast money can come as quick as go as quick as it can come, and you got to make sure that this is why when we plan to make sure that we put contingencies in place, and we make sure that we've got levels there. I always say that the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire approach. We get to a certain level, we lock it in, we put it aside, so it's always guaranteed, and then we move on, rather than just keep risking. But like I said before, you need somebody to be the richest in the world and do stuff. You need to take that approach, and that's not the approach that's good at keeping money. So it's a really hard balance to figure out if you don't know what you're doing. Then we see him steadily climb up. Now you look at this, right? He's gone from $500 million back up to $3 billion, right? So he's obviously good at business. He's obviously a good investor, because he's multiple times he's gone from a small amount of wealth considered on the Forbes list at least, and grown it to multi-billion dollars, right? Well, regardless of how he did it, he's done it. Not many people can say they've done that, right? So he's good at investing. It's not that he's bad at investing. It's just that typical high-risk investor is going to have ups and downs. And the S&P 500, the difference is it's always going to grow. Long-term, it is always going to grow, because it's always going to diversify across many different businesses, and the money is always going to follow the growth. So that's why it's just a more conservative way to grow money long-term. Doesn't mean they're better investments than Trump. He's obviously good at business. He can grow it. Just needs to learn how to hold on to it a bit better. Like I said, having the risky attitude is the opposite of what is needed to hold on to money. So then we see the GFC hit 2009, and he drops back down to under $2 billion. And then again, post that, he climbs all the way back up to another. So he's gained, right? If we look at this in separate successions, we can call that 1.5 billion the first time. And then we call that 2.5 billion the next time. So 2.5, so that's 4 billion. That drops off, and then he's grown 1.8 to 4.5. So let's call that 2.2. So we're talking this bloke has made like growth wise almost $8 billion in his life. Just hasn't been able to hold on to it, right? It's fucking crazy, man. That's crazy. He's obviously good at making money, but he's obviously not that good at managing or hold on to it, because he's always looking at the risk play. So what do we need to understand about that? That's the point that I want to bring up. I've been saying this for years. So many of you focus on, if I make enough money, I'll be okay. If I make enough money, I'll be okay. Doesn't matter how much money you make. If you can't hold on to it and you can't manage it, it's worth nothing, because you're always going to be stressed out. You're always going to be looking for the next dollar. What you need, it's all well and good to be good at making money. If you're that person, mad, awesome. But you need to have someone in your corner who can help you manage it and hold on to it appropriately, so that it's not a roller coaster like this. Because how's that financial freedom? How are you financially free if you're always out there? You've got to be out there making money, and that's your backup plan. Well, if I lose it all, I can make it again. Okay, so you're never going to stop, right? And that's what we do. right? That's what our discovery process is all about. That's what our road mapping is all about. It's all about making sure we can get you to where you want to be with the most efficiency and the lowest risk possible. It doesn't mean low risk. It just means the lowest risk to achieve your goals. And also being able to tell you when to tear off the risk, being able to say, okay, we're here now. You've taken the necessary risk to get here. Let's back it off a bit. Let's be a bit more conservative for a little bit, and then we'll turn the risk back on. Not only that, we are able to secure platforms and segues into each goal to make sure that once we secure a foundation, once we secure and guarantee an outcome, we can take more risk into the next step. You don't need to take all the risk from the get-go. You can build the momentum. Let's get the worst case scenario looked after. Let's get the second best case scenario. Let's work up that plan. Every time you climb a run on that ladder, you can take a little bit more risk on the next one because you've looked after yourself behind anyway, right? So taking Trump as an example, right? Taking Trump as an example, yeah, maybe he would have been better off putting money into the S&P 500, right? That's out of his control. There's probably an alternative universe out there where the S&P 500 tanked and he wouldn't have been. The moral of the lesson from this story is that he's obviously really good at making money, right? But it still doesn't mean he's the richest in the world. He's obviously very, very good at making money, but there was an alternative he could have done using hindsight that would have made him more money. Would he have enjoyed it? Who knows, right? You need to take a lesson out of that and understand it doesn't matter how good at making money you are, if you don't have the right processes, the right foundations, and the right team in your corner, you're not going to be doing the best you can do. All right. That's what we're here for. So this year, you're confident with yourself in backing yourself in making money, but you think you need a little bit of help in managing it, holding on to it, and making it work for you a bit better, come join the team. Let's go.